We have with us today Vittoria Abbate, who is the director of Mount Diablo Adult School.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's Vittoria Abbate. Nice to see you all. I have met many of you, but not all. So very happy to meet those I have not previously met, doing the good work that we do in adult ed. So Contra Costa County is a large county. I think many of you know that. Some of my colleagues from Contra Costa County are on this particular webinar. And we have had a long history in Contra Costa County. When I say we, K-12 adult education agencies, and there are 7 of us with our Workforce Development Board. There has been, I should say, over the years, an ebb and a flow of the work that we do. A lot of it, I believe, frankly, depends very much on the leadership of your Workforce Development Board. And that means both the director or executive director and the board itself. Those of you who've been in adult ed for a long time know that we have often been, when people hear about us, they say, that's the best kept secret. You have the best kept secret. And we've really struggled with that, frankly, to be not the best kept secret, but to be front and center in our community work through our workforce development boards and engaging with employers, both in terms of training and employment for our students. So in Contra Costa County, as I said, I have been serving on the Workforce Development Board for about 6 or 7 years now, as the representative for our K-12 adult eds. We have network meetings, the K-12 adult eds, and during those network meetings, we discuss all sorts of, it's an informal network, but we discuss all kinds of things. We help each other, support each other. We do some of the behind the scenes work that we need to do for our consortium, which is the Contra Costa County Adult Education Consortium. And one of the topics is always reporting out and discussing around the Workforce Development Board, our relationships collectively as well as individually, programs that we have. We've always had, again, K-12 adult ed programs with the Workforce Development Board. We have a program, for example, through the Workforce Development Board that led to a contract for many years now with the Employment Human Services Department for training that we call Focus and Career Connections. And this is supporting our CalWorks and the hardest to serve students who are under the auspices of the Employment Human Services Department in Contra Costa County, but need to get into employment. And some of these individuals need extra help. And adult ed has always been the go-to training organization for that. Fast forward from the old days and that model to the newer days of the consortia, statewide consortia work, we have changed things up a bit. In 2018, the Workforce Development Board and our director, who is a longtime director, talked to our community of adult ed and community colleges and other training providers in Contra Costa County that there was going to be a change up of the work in the county, and that would be through our One Stop, which is located at Port Chicago Highway in Concord. And for those of you who aren't familiar, Port Chicago is an old area, old region, has a lot of history as a port, a working port during World War II, but it is very difficult to access from most areas of the county. And that's where our One Stop, our East Bay Works One Stop is located. So that was and has been a challenge for many of our community members to access the services of the WIOA services of our county at the One Stop. So in 2018, the change up at the state level, based on federal level, was that in our case, our One Stop was operated by our Workforce Development Board. And there was history around that. And the history briefly was that a contract had gone out years ago for providing the services at the one stop, and a private organization had come in and won the contract bid. And for many years, contract was the contractor for the Workforce Development Board providing services. There was only one problem with that. And the problem was that they didn't work with the training providers in the region. They basically filtered them to either private educational training sites only, and or set up individual pods, if you will, for training. So those of us in adult ed particularly, and even our colleges, really had a disconnect in the training being provided our community members under that model. So some of our community members and adult eds came together and went forward by reorganizing the one stop. And as a result, and then things have changed, of course, over time with the federal regulations of how one stops or the workforce development boards provide those services. And then we individually, agency by agency, began to participate more actively and more front and center, providing support at the one stop, everything from testing to client services, training at different sites, adult ed training, et cetera. That model worked really well for us. And then in 2018, that model changed up, and the Workforce Development Board had to procure out all of its services. And I know many of you know about that point in time when this change came about. I went representing Mount Diablo Adult Education to the contract, the bidders contract meeting, and to learn and listen and to see who else was there and how we might go forward with this change up in our region. And I was rather surprised to see that we only had 12 people at the event. And out of the 12 people, there were probably only 4 different organizations represented, which I felt wasn't a really very good start, given that this was going to be a major change up that at the one stop. And we have many clients that we refer there, plus we have staff that have been providing services there. So after the meeting, I organized a group of our local service providers, both CBOs, or I should say CBOs, our K-12 adult eds, and our community colleges. This came about in the fall of 2018. It was around Thanksgiving. And frankly, when I called this meeting to talk about what I saw as this looming potential challenge of the uncertainty of how our one-stop would be operated going forward in this new environment, I wasn't sure we'd have many attend. We had over 30 people attend. Our community members, specifically our K-12 adults, our community colleges, I called all of them and they came. And from that, we formed a collaborative, which we call ourselves now the Contra Costa Workforce Collaborative. And our sole purpose for forming the collaborative was to bid on the contract to operate the one stop, the AJCC, American Job Center of California, at the one stop at Port Chicago, and to build a new model. I had also invited, there were a couple of private organizations from out of state that had come for the bidders meeting to hear about it. And I invited them, much to their surprise. And my thinking was, and what I shared with them is, look at it this way: if you win the contract, you will know who all your partners are that should be engaged in the work we do for our community in training and employment and workforce services. If you don't, you know who your competition is. If you don't, you know who your go-to people are in the county of Contra Costa County. So we went forward, we won the award, and we have been operating both access sites around the county, which we established, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a minute, as well as operating the American Job Center at the East Bay Works location at Port Chicago. As a result of that, we have 10 members, and the 10 members are not all of our K-12 adult schools in the collaborative, but they all participate because they are all training providers as well. But for the access sites, the idea was that we would establish within our communities an AJCC access site so that our community members no longer had to travel with difficulty to the location at the one stop at Port Chicago. And we banded together 10 partners, and the 10 partners, some of us have multiple locations as well. For example, the community colleges participate, and they provide support services at our 3 community colleges in the area. We asked one of our partners, Rubicon Programs, which had a long history in workforce development work in Alameda and was newer in Contra Costa County, but with their experience, to be our lead, our fiscal lead, to help us organize and manage our services. They did step up, accepting that challenge. They are our fiscal agent, and they provide us with some basic structure for our meetings and leadership of our collaborative. We also worked with RDA, which is a research and development, the Research Development Associates, and they helped us with our process and getting started. They are still at times supporting us with writing for grants and other things that we might engage them in, but mostly we are now operating the organization ourselves. Our services have been expanded. We have access sites around the county, and we have individuals who are employed directly by Rubicon under our contract with Rubicon. So we have what are called subcontracts with Rubicon. And that's because the Workforce Development Board couldn't really quite wrap its mind around how it was going to contract with 10 different agencies, although they love the idea of the expansion of the services, the reach of the services. So we have become what is known as sub-recipients with Rubicon in front. I think one important thing is, since I was working and a member of the board, I was able to help navigate, once we won the contract, some of the challenging, along with my colleagues, some of the challenging structural pieces, and that was one of them. How could the Workforce Development Board oversee this work and hold us accountable when there are so many of us? And the answer was, we have a lead. It is Rubicon. We will have a contract with them. It's a sub-recipient contract. And for the accountability pieces, both fiscal and data, we will work as a collaborative and put in place an ongoing review process, which Rubicon will be responsible for. And collaboratively, we were then able to present and provide to the Workforce Development Board in an ongoing fashion our data, reports on our fiscal operations, etc. So I think the model, which is very unique, it is a public partnership that is one of the first, I think, in the state. I know that there have been others that are testing the waters with this as well. For us, has been very successful. The reason is reach has been greatly expanded. The partnership allows us to mature the process, which supports the expansion. And we have had a very collaborative relationship with the Workforce Development Board, whereby we are not just a contractor, but we are also able to provide them with information, data, and recommendations based on what we find as to how we can together expand services in our county. So each of our 10 sites has a career coach, And each site also provides other services in collaboration. So our career coach here at Mount Diablo Adult Education is here not on a full-time basis, part-time basis. Schedules vary from site to site, but we collaboratively market and we individually market within our communities the services of the AJCC. One of our we do a calendar here at Mount Diablo, and many of our partners do a calendar, and that is a shared calendar across the region. The beauty for the individual receiving the services is that there's no, as we say, wrong door. We can share clients, or a client may find going to work, going to a site closer to their work location as opposed to their home location is more convenient for them. So there's a lot of flexibility for the individuals. We function very differently, I think, than any other collaborative because of the structure we have built. The Workforce Development Board has recently reopened our AJCC in September, and with a bounce back program, so that all the clients that come to our access points or at our sites have access to the WIOA funds, the county funds, and the services of the AJCC locally. That has made a huge difference in getting some of the services and the funding out into the outer reaches of our community. The struggle has been, of course, COVID-19. Many of our sites were ready to reopen, but because of county restrictions, which, you know, you have a kind of a split personality. We have our, let's say, for example, K-12 sites, and we're operating in one realm, and yet the county is operating in another realm. And some of those disconnects in COVID, not so much in the protocols, but opening sites, when sites could be open, if staff could be back, all of that have been challenging, to say the least. But I think we've made progress, and we have sort of overcome some of the hardest bumps along the way, and our sites across the county now, the access sites, are open because, again, many of us were open because we are K-12, and many of the CBOs were open, but the colleges were not open. So we've had to do some work to share and support each other, and to support the clientele in the county where we had sites that weren't quite back yet. So I'll leave it there at that. The jury is out, honestly, on the model. I think it's a successful model for us. We are going forward. Our contract, first 3-year contract is expiring, and we are going forward to bid again to see if we may continue this work to help it expand further, and to dig deeper in the work, build the partnerships, expand the relationships, and the work that we do.
Victoria, thank you very much. It's super informative and interesting to hear the things that your county has done. Do you can you tell us a little bit about how your agencies in your adult schools have gotten their programs listed on the ETPL list, so that they can, you know, partner in a different way financially with the Workforce Development Board?
Yes, absolutely. We have a good record, I think you can say, in Contra Costa County, that our 7 adult schools all provide training. I'm sorry, not all, 6 of our schools provide training programs and are on the ETPL. The one that is not has a very different clientele, and it's a very unique clientele. But we all participate, and for many years have done so. We had a little interesting wrinkle develop couple of years ago, actually during COVID, and right before our executive director retired in December of 2020, and we have a new executive director. And that was that the review process that needs to happen over time with all the ETPL trainers hadn't been completed. So there were a few of us that had to go through the process, but because we have been on the ETPL for so long, the process moved rather quickly, and we were able to provide the documentation that was needed. But we do provide, as I mentioned, training in a lot of our CTE programs. We have done a lot of programs around welfare to work, working with that particular population. And we have a very good reciprocal relationship with our Workforce Development Board for clientele being referred to our K-12 adult eds for their training programs that are listed on the ETPL. And it's a rather smooth process in how that happens. It's been, as I said, well established over time. I think our biggest challenge, frankly, is slightly different, but I'll just mention it. We have a new executive director from another county, but a person who has experience with Workforce Development Board, but ensuring that the K-12 adult ed voice with our college partners is in the Workforce Development Board work, and that we have seats on the Workforce Development Board is critical. And that's something we don't want to let go. Currently, we have that in Contra Costa County, but I know that's a challenge. We are mandated WIOA Title II partners, and every K-12 adult ed director principal should be connected to the work we do in the Workforce Development Board. And that can be ideally through a representative, and that seat, although it is vetted by your board of supervisors, et cetera, it is a seat that can rotate over time among your K-12 colleagues.
Thank you. One of the things that we've heard from other areas, from other participants, is that they've had real challenges in doing that application for the ETPL. And I know you folks have done it for an extended amount of time, but if you haven't done it before, it can be a little bit daunting gathering the information that they ask for. So we really
Yes.
appreciate you sharing that's been successful for your agency.
Thank you. And I just want to mention, I believe that Andrea Murphy is on this in this discussion today. I'm just scrolling through to see if she's here. But Andrea Murphy is one of our coordinators, program coordinators for Workforce Development Board work, but her title is for Workforce Programs. She has a lot of experience with the ETPL, frankly, even more than I do over the years. I'm sure she would be happy if anyone has any questions to provide some of her expertise and experience and wisdom on the subject of how to approach the ETPL and make sure that you are able to be on it and how to go about that.
Thanks so much. I'm sure we'll have people that are interested in getting in touch with her.
I wanted to say kudos, because Vittoria, what you were doing was describing thinking outside the box and looking for ways to provide students that ability to be in their neighborhood. That was really inspiring. I love to hear it, and I think you've pushed the envelope in creative ways to construct what your vision was, without going outside too far. But I'm very impressed. Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you. We really wanted to maintain the work that we have been doing for so long in the way, but to do it more deeply and more expansively. And this really met that.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it.